Today, we're heading to Louisiana for a case that starts with a truly horrifying discovery and ends by untangling a killer's web of lies. This is the story of how one single text message and a few tiny strands of hair unraveled a deceptive confession, piece by painful piece. So it all kicks off with this 911 call, but the voice on the other end is just chillingly calm. There's no panic, no distress, just this flat statement: I need to report a crime. The caller gives an address and then just hangs up, sending police into what could be an incredibly dangerous and totally unknown situation. When the first officer, Josh Stanford, gets there, he's not met by the man who called. No, he's met by 4 little girls. The oldest tells him eggs are burning on the stove and that their mom is locked in a room. They lead him to the bathroom, and that's where he finds her. Their mother, 28-year-old Ashley Fish, lifeless on the floor. Okay, so let's just take a second and break down what the officers are walking into here. You've got the victim, Ashley Fish, dead from a single gunshot wound. You have 4 traumatized children right there in the house. The man who called 911 is nowhere to be found. And those burning eggs on the stove, that little detail suggests a completely normal evening was just violently shattered. So right away, the investigators have a huge problem. The scene is, well, it's disturbingly clean. There are almost no signs of a struggle, which forces them to ask a really tough question. Could this have been self-inflicted? With no suspect in sight, this was the very first mystery they had to solve. And you know, this case, it gets personal fast. As the officers are identifying the victim, the lead detective, a guy named Detective Cooley, recognizes her name, Ashley Fish. Turns out, he'd graduated high school with her. So this wasn't just another case file. This was about getting justice for someone he actually knew. Okay, so look at this timeline. It shows just how fast everything went down. At 6:55 p.m., Ashley's ex-husband, John, has his last contact with her. Just 20 minutes later, a neighbor sees a black truck speeding away from the house. Then, the 911 call comes in, and minutes after that, an officer is standing over Ashley's body. That black truck, it immediately became their #1 lead. And this is where the community really comes through and helps break the case wide open. When detectives start talking to the neighbors, it turns out one of them is Ashley's best friend. She confirms that Ashley's new boyfriend drives a black truck, and she gives them his name, Tyler Durchikowski. All of a sudden, their unknown caller has an identity. So just as the police are getting ready to launch this big manhunt, the whole thing takes another crazy turn. A second 911 call comes in. And guess who it is? It's Tyler Durchikowski himself. He calmly tells the dispatcher, I shot somebody, and says he's just waiting in a nearby parking lot for them to come pick him up. He was turning himself in. But here's the thing. Tyler isn't calling to confess to a murder. Nope, he's claiming it was self-defense. He tells the officers that Ashley pulled a gun on him during an argument, and in the struggle to get it away from her, it just went off. And that sets up the entire conflict for this case. It's now up to the detectives to find the physical evidence to either prove or completely disprove his story. So, Tyler's whole story is built on this idea that he felt trapped, that he wanted to leave the relationship. But as soon as detectives start talking to Ashley's family, especially her ex-husband John, a completely different story starts to take shape, one that's going to poke some serious holes in Tyler's claims. And this is the text that changes everything. Just moments before she was killed, Ashley was texting her ex-husband John about an argument they were having. She told him Tyler was mad that he had to leave, and then she sent this final, absolutely haunting message. He won't leave. It completely flips his story on its head. He wasn't trying to escape, she was. And it wasn't just John, by the way. Ashley's entire family was deeply suspicious of Tyler. One relative even said they thought it was weird that a man with no kids of his own would so aggressively pursue a mother of 4. To them, he was just a huge walking red flag. Now, to back up his story about feeling trapped, Tyler claimed his relationship with Ashley was the one thing stopping him from getting back with his ex-wife. Well, investigators found something that blew that right out of the water. They found recent love letters he'd written to his ex, including this line. This proved he could have left Ashley at any moment. He wasn't trapped at all. He was there by choice. So, okay, Tyler's story is already falling apart just based on what people are saying. But you know how it is in court. You need more than that. You need that hard, irrefutable physical proof to completely dismantle his self-defense claim. And that is exactly what the forensic team was about to deliver. And the forensic evidence they found, it was absolutely damning. First, Ashley's cell phone was still clutched in her dominant right hand. Now think about it. Would you be holding your phone if you were in a life-or-death struggle over a gun? No way. Second, and this is the real kicker, forensic examiners found strands of Ashley's hair inside the barrel of the gun. That only happens one way, if the weapon is pressed firmly against her head when it's fired. This wasn't a struggle. This was an execution. During his interrogation, while trying to explain his version of events, Tyler actually said, one bullet goes off and you're fucked. And in a way, it was like he was predicting his own future. With his story of a struggle completely shattered by the evidence, this case was heading toward its one inevitable conclusion. So Tyler Durachowski went to trial, and he stuck to his self-defense story the whole time, but it was no use. The state's case, built on that powerful forensic evidence and the testimony from Ashley's loved ones, was just overwhelming. He was found guilty on all charges, including second-degree murder, and sentenced to life in prison without any possibility of parole. But justice in a courtroom doesn't erase the tragedy. And at the heart of this whole story are 4 young girls who now have to grow up without their mom. The community, which was deeply affected by this case, rallied around them, creating a fund to help pay for their therapy and their education, to give them the best possible chance at a future that was stolen from their mother. This case really leaves you with a tough question, doesn't it? Here's a guy who wrote love letters and claimed to be a victim, yet he committed a cold-blooded, execution-style murder. What warning signs were missed here? How does a domestic dispute escalate so quickly into such an irreversible tragedy? It's just a somber reminder of the secrets that can hide behind closed doors.